Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today, we will be leading a PAW client training, and it's going to be focused on the admin role. This is the third and final free PAW training that QueBIT is offering. In case you missed the first two trainings, be sure to head over to our QueBIT YouTube channel. We've posted already the first session, which was PAW dashboarding for our end users. In that session, we built a dashboard from scratch. In the second session was PAW for modelers. In that session, we learned how to do things such as adding cubes, dimensions, elements, hierarchies, that sort of thing. So that is all posted on our QueBIT YouTube channel. I'm your presenter today. My name is Maria Lack. I'm the Manager of Strategic Operations, Training, and Support. I'm based in sunny San Diego, California. On the call today is Steve Swartz. Steve is a planning analytics consultant and is joining us from Austin, Texas. Steve's going to be monitoring for any of your questions. So I wanted to go into a little bit about our company, Kubek Consulting. QueBIT is headquartered in New York, and we have consultants all across the United States from coast to coast. We help companies succeed by optimizing their planning and analysis processes, and this includes FP&A, financial planning and analysis, operational planning, and increasingly integrated planning across all business functions. We pride ourselves on understanding planning and analysis from both a business and finance point of view, but we also understand the technology deeply. Our history with TM1, now called Planning Analytics, goes back to the early 1990s, and we're very excited about how IBM is investing in it. We're especially excited to talk about all the new possibilities for our clients with Planning Analytics Workspace, otherwise known as PAW, and that's what we're going to be showcasing today. Our PAW knowledge goals are to cover the administration capabilities. We're going to take a look at how admins can monitor performance and system optimization. We're going to delve into the different user roles of PAW, as well as discuss the differences of PAW security versus TM1 security. So we'll be sure to leave some time at the end for a little questions, but we have a lot to get through. So before we get started, just a reminder for some housekeeping notes. As I mentioned, today is part of a 3 free online training series with IBM Planning Analytics Workspace. And if you don't have PAW yet, I wanted to let you know that IBM has a fantastic free trial that you all can use. To access that free trial, just go to our website, qubit.com/IBMPA. We will be recording this webinar and emailing you all a link afterwards. So be sure to share this link with anyone who you might feel would be interested in learning PAW. Or of course, you can always go and visit our online catalog or QueBIT YouTube channel, where you're going to find dozens of other past helpful webinars. We also encourage everyone to ask questions throughout today's session. To do so, please just type your questions into the GoToWebinar questions box. Now, as I mentioned, we have a lot to cover, so I'm going to do my best to answer as many questions as time allows. If I don't get to your question, I will be sure to follow up with an email. All right. Our training today runs on a couple of assumptions. So for those of you who are brand new to using PAW and need to build a dashboard from scratch, again, not what we're going to cover here. This is just solely focused on the admin skill set. So our training does assume that you have some experience with TM1 as an admin. We also have the assumption that you as an admin will have the proper TM1 security access to do everything that we're going to review today. Before we go into the demo, I wanted to just give a brief overview on the different user roles in PAW. So PAW has 4 main user roles. We have consumer, analyst, modeler, and admin. So consumer, you can see, has a very limited view. I did some screenshots here of what you're going to see if you're logging in as each one of these different roles. So as a consumer, notice that you don't have the pencil capability, meaning you cannot edit, you cannot create your own books and views. You're simply able to consume the data. So something has to be set up for you in order to see it, and you can just log in and see it. You also don't have that pop out, what I like to call the data tree on the left-hand side, but you do as an analyst. So notice when you move then into an analyst role, you have a little pencil, so you can start editing, and you have this pop out data tree. Within the data tree, you notice that I can have access into the different TM1 instances that I'm allowed into. Here I'm running 3 different instances, and you can expand any of the TM1 instances to show that you can only access applications and cubes. Okay, this is within the PAW interface. That's not to say that you don't have privileges behind the scenes to perhaps run a process. You know, that's all based on TM1 security. But in PAW, you would only be able to see applications and cubes in your data tree. Modeler, on the other hand, has a little bit more expanded functionalities as far as what the user can see. So they can see applications, cubes, dimensions, processes, chores, control objects, that sort of thing. Again, it all relies on your TM1 security. However, you can physically see these objects in your data tree. You also have the pencil that can put you into edit mode. As an admin, you have everything that the modeler has, and you also have the additional admin user interface. So this is a completely separate user interface where you can go and start editing the performance and the behind the scenes things. So to give it kind of a different layout, I created this chart here to show you what you can do regarding the PAW objects. Objects in PAW are books and views. So as a consumer, you can see that the consumer is really only opening books and views that has been granted access to them. And the consumer, if you think about it, who in TM1 would be a consumer? Well, just only those people that need to consume the data. So they're not going to be doing anything like creating and editing and sharing their own books and views. They're certainly not going to be able to delete anything. And they're not going to be doing anything, any kind of modeling. So they're not going to be adding any kind of hierarchies or dimensions or cubes or that sort of thing. So a consumer is just simply logging in and looking around. Analyst has a little bit more privileges. They can create, edit, and share books. The only way that they can delete books and views, though, is if you grant them full control over that book and view. So they can create, but in order to delete, you would have to go in and give a special folder permission of full control. Again, these are people that are not going to edit the model, but they might need to create content within the PAW interface. Modelers are people who edit the model. Typically, these are admins in your current TM1 setup. They would be an admin, or they would be a data admin. And these people are also in PAW able to create, edit, and share books and views. They can delete books and views. They can also go in and they can start, you know, editing dimensions, hierarchies, those sort of things. But a modeler doesn't have the user interface that an admin does. So who would be a PAW admin? That's a very common question that we get. Well, a true PAW admin would only really be 1 or 2 people in your organizations, and they would only be perhaps 1 or 2 of your existing admins in TM1. So think of this admin PAW role as a subset of your total admins within your organization. The other admins you would most likely grant as modeler roles. So delving further into what is the PAW admin role, well, the PAW admin truly has full control in Planning Analytics Workspace. Of course, they can create, edit, delete, and share books and views, but they can also do this for users and groups. Once they do create books and views, they then have the ability to grant permissions to users and groups. They can see everything in PAW. They can see other users and what the other users create in PAW. And they also have this additional access to the admin UI, which is just basically a set of monitoring tools to do performance optimization. So today we're going to log in and we're going to assume that we've been granted the full admin security rights in TM1, and then we can show you what you can see in PAW. So again, if you're an end user, if you're perhaps somebody that is going to go in and consume or be an analyst, you and your organization would be considered maybe an end user, and somebody who needs to access the TM1 data. And you would do those in two ways. One is through Planning Analytics for Excel, now called PAFA, previously called PAX. I'm still doing my best to call it PAFA and not PAX. So if I say one or the other, I really mean PAFA. And you could also access the interface through PAW. PAW, of course, is a web browser. The key takeaway here is that all of this infrastructure is still sitting on top of the TM1 server where all the data still lies. So this is why it's very important to understand that no matter what you set up in PAW, it's constantly going to go back and look at the TM1 permissions for that user. As an admin, you can, historically access and edit everything through Architect, but now, as we're going to see today, PAW is the new go-forward administration tool. So we are going to focus on PAW for admins. When we do our demo, I wanted to give a couple real-life business requirements that an admin might need to do for your organization. And this would include things like performance monitoring, cube optimization, or otherwise known as dimension reordering, adding users and groups in PAW. You as the PAW admin might also need to grant permissions to folders and books to these users and groups, and of course, migrating PAW objects. Again, the training assumption here is that you're already familiar with these terms, so also familiar with being an admin in TM1. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to jump into my demo environment here. And at first, I'm going to log in as an admin. So here you notice that I'm in my main page of Planning Analytics Workspace. I notice that I have some shared folders. I also have a folder toolbar on the left-hand side where I can do shared, personal folders, or I can delve in and see my different users. And then furthermore, access my different users folders. So I can drill in and see what these different people have created. You notice that I also have, though, an administration link. So this is an active button here, or you can also get to the administration page by going to admin and then administer. So when I go into my administration user interface, you notice that I have a toolbar along the top, and you can just kind of easily at a glance see what each one is going to feature. Let's start with users. So here's where I can add users within PAW. You notice that I have a running list here, and I have a little crown. The little crown is a note that these people are admins. You notice that you are either active or not invited yet. So here I created a user who hasn't actually logged in, but is a user in PAW. So once they log in, this will now say active. If I click on any one of these, it can show you the profile, and here's where you can see their role, and you can change the role. So if I click on role, I now am given the 4 different PAW role options. Here we see we have Charlie, he's a consumer. He's also in several groups. So you can easily change a user's role. To get to adding users or removing users is still a little difficult, in my opinion. There's no quick, easy add button or remove button. You have to do an Excel import export. So first you would click export users and it pops up a Excel file. And you notice that it just has columns of data. So here, if I wanted to add a new one, I could type in their names, first name, last name, their role could be assigned, their email, their status will be marked active once they log in, and the directive, simply add or remove. Once I save this file, I can come in here and just upload the user file. And it's as simple as that. Adding groups is a little more simple. So here you see I have different groups set up, but here I do have a simple create button. So if I created a new group here, it brings me to my groups page, and I can just name the group, click the people that I want in them, and click create. Nice and simple. If you wanted to add somebody to a group, you can just go into an existing group, and then you can add them there. So click on my group, I'm gonna click edit. You see that I have 2 people in this group. I could click on another or deactivate somebody. I also have the ability to show selected users if that's more convenient, or show all users to add. Another feature is the Features tab. In Features, the idea here is that IBM will introduce new features to PAW, and as an admin, you can manage when or how your users are exposed to this new functionality. So as an admin, you could see the new feature listed, and then you would have the ability to toggle on or off that feature with this enabled row. As you notice, I don't have anything listed here, so this is not something that IBM has for this current release. But going forward, this will be something that I think is very useful for admins. Settings will be able to set a theme for the overall look and feel of your dashboards and things that you build in PAW. You notice that it comes with a couple of canned themes. There's a default, there's a light theme, a dark theme. You can also upload custom themes and fonts, things that might be, you know, to your organization's color scheme or font style. That sort of stuff can be controlled behind the scenes here. Another thing you can do is you can go over to your database tab, and from here you can see all the different databases that are running behind the scenes. So you notice locally, I have AdventureWorks and my CapEx model running. I have a couple others that are not running, but I also have access from another server. So let's say that this could mirror in your world a dev and a prod, right? And on that other server, I have a different TM1 instance running and a couple others that are stopped. You notice that you do have a stop button and a restart button to easily stop and restart your servers at this entire page. You can also go in the upper right-hand corner to configuration. If you click on this, this is where you can set your refresh time. And if you go into downloads on the right-hand side, you can download one of 2 things. So I'm running a PAW on-premise. So my download that would be available here is for the latest and greatest PA agent. I also have a quick access link to the installation guide. If I was in PAW for Cloud though, under downloads here, I would see the latest download for PAW, Planning Analytics for Excel. So it's one or the other, depending on whether you're running PAW in the cloud or PAW on-prem. You have the additional capability of going into each individual TM1 instance. So here you see that I'm now within the CapEx TM1 instance. You notice that you have some memory and CPU usage data here. We also have a list of different threads. I'm currently the only one logged in here. However, if you saw more people, they would be listed as well. Or perhaps you're running other processes, you could see the process. Under thread type, it might not say system. It would probably say who ran it from the user. You also have the ability to right-click and then cancel the thread. If it's a TM1 process that's not a system process, you can cancel it, or you could disconnect. Obviously, I am the admin, so I can't disconnect myself, but if this was a different user, I could disconnect the user here. It's a very easy right-click capability. You also have a couple of different features at the top right within this screen. You can download any of the logs that pertain to this CapEx model. So you can just click on any number one of these and choose to download. You can also go into this little cog wheel, and this is your database settings. So this is really neat. They have built out a user interface to get to your config file. So for example, I'm just going to drill down into one of these. This is the audit log. You notice that I can just at a glance click the different value and make some adjustments to my config file. Now this user interface is great. However, you have to be aware that it is still a TM1 config file. So depending on the parameter type, whether it's static or dynamic, you still may have to do a TM1 refresh on your model. And behind the scenes, you also have, again, a thread auto fresh interface. So you can specifically set that here, as well as your thread thresholds and alerts. So for example, you might notice behind the scenes that, mine are all green. Well, at what threshold would I want to show an orange or a red icon? Do I want to send an alert to somebody at this critical condition? And what are their email addresses? So it's a very nice user interface. These are just all the defaults, but of course, as you can imagine, you can set these different parameters to whatever your organizational needs are. So that's databases. Another tab that you're going to have is Lifecycle Management. If I click into here, this is where we can do PAW object migrations. So within PAW, as you build things, whether it is a title or a logo or a dashboard or a book or a folder, that sort of thing, you can come in here and you can migrate those objects from one PAW environment into another. So here you can see I have a little history of today or the last 30 days of all the migrations that I've done. I can go in to manage my existing snapshots. So let's go in and create a new snapshot. So from here, I access a new user interface. You kind of work left to right. So you have on the left a filter capability. I'm going to keep all of this as my choice. You could delve down into users. You could delve down into asset type, folder. You get the idea. And from here, you can search what objects you'd like to carry over. You can multi-select. You can filter. It's a pretty nice interface. I'm just going to randomly choose this one. And once I choose my objects I want to migrate, I just click Add to Cart. So now that I have this in my cart, I choose Migrate. I'm going to get a pop-up. You might have a dev and a prod environment. They would all be listed here. I'm only running one on-prem, so this is my default. I can name my snapshot, so let's just call it today's date. I can give it a description. I can also put it into a folder. Notice I'm going to keep the folder structure while deploying. I chose a view. So this P&L view lives within a structure of folders, a hierarchy of folders. if I choose to keep the folder, as we're going to see in a minute, it's going to keep that same folder structure. If I didn't, it would just take the view. So now I'm going to choose, we'll just do tomorrow's date. We'll do migrate. And now we get a little pop-up at the top that says it was migrated successfully. It does fade fast, however, in order to find out whether that migration took place successfully or not, you have to go back to your main page, and all migrated objects will be listed under the personal folder. So here you see that I have the 5/20/20 folder that I created, and within it, you notice I've got a folder structure because that's what I decided to keep. And then finally, my view. Again, if I chose not to keep that folder structure, I would have just put that view in my 5/20/20 folder. All right. So now if I go up a level using my breadcrumb trail at the top, let's talk about folder permissions. So we've got this folder, and essentially it's in my personal group of folders. I also have a shared group of folders or users. So if I go and want to move this folder or apply permissions to this folder, as an admin, I can go into the 3 ellipses here, the 3 dots, and I can choose move. So to move it, it is literally as simple as just kind of like a Windows folder hierarchy here. I'm going to choose shared, and let's just put it in the backup folder. So I'm going to just choose move. It's then going to ask me, okay, well, do you want to inherit the permissions from the backup folder? Well, this is a migrated object. This is something only admins want to see. So I noticed that the backup folder is already set to having an admin control. And you notice that everybody else is blanked out. That's what I would prefer. If I wanted to start editing and having some people have access to it, of course, I would deselect and choose whether they can view the contents or edit. If you can edit a folder, that means that you can start, creating content, deleting, sharing, that sort of thing. So this is sufficient. I'm just going to click OK. So there we are. It's as simple as that. Now, if I go back into shared and I go into my backup, I notice here's my 5/20/20 folder. So we can now understand that that's how we move and apply different permissions. Let's go back for the demo. We're going to be using the CapEx folder. So again, if it was something that we wanted to look at the permissions, I could click the little ellipses and go to permissions. So here, who has access to this folder? Well, we see that the admin has full control, and we have everyone else set to view, as well as Molly, who is a modeler, who has an edit capability. Maria, who is going to be an admin, has full control. Everyone else, we just want to be able to view the folder. So we'll just keep this. All right, now what we're going to do is let's start logging in and out as different users. I'm going to log out, and before I show you this, I'm going to come over into my CapEx model, and I'm going to log in and show you the different security rights of the people that I've already set up. So here's some different users. You notice that we have Annie, she's going to be an analyst in PAW, Charlie, who's a consumer, Maria, who is an admin, and Molly, who's a modeler. Just note that every one of my users belongs to a group called everyone. And we have 2 people, we have Annie and Molly, who have specific permissions to run a process. They're going to be able to load the data. So they have additional capabilities that Charlie, our consumer, does not have. Also to note, Maria, who is a PAW admin, is only a security admin in TM1. So let's see how this all plays out in the PAW user interface. So I'm going to go back in and let's start with Charlie. Charlie is our consumer. He is somebody that will just be able to access the data that we're giving him. And so let's start. First, you notice that he doesn't see the backup folder because we told as an admin that Charlie doesn't even see that folder. So he's only limited to these 3 folders. If you've been following along in our series of free PAW trainings, you notice that we have built out this demo in the CapEx folder. Here's the familiar demo. And as a consumer, we notice that he doesn't have a pencil, so he can't come in here and start editing anything. We also notice that he has no ability to have a pop-out data tree. So as a consumer, Charlie is only able to click on the folder that we have granted him access and come into the book and view that he can see. So that's it. Now let's see what Charlie can actually see. So if we go to the dashboard, Charlie can't see these objects. User doesn't have read access is the error message, unable to fetch the data. So even though Charlie was allowed to see the folder, see the book, open the book, if he is unable in TM1 security to have access to, let's say, the cube or the dimension or the element, he's going to start getting errors on his dashboard. So for all of you dashboard developers, it's very important to be aware of who are your users, what are their capabilities in TM1, and develop your dashboards around that. So here we see Charlie can't access this. And if we go over into our asset input page, we notice that Charlie does have the capability to enter in data here for his assets. He has the ability to come in here, I'm just making it things, and edit. So he has the ability to come into this cube. But let's try and now run the process. So if I click on the button, I do have the prompt for the parameters come up. I can click OK, but it errors. So here we see that Charlie is not granted that data loading capability. And so because he didn't have access to this process, he still sees the button. He can click on the button. He could even enter a parameter. For the very last step, he will be thrown an error. So Charlie then, we noticed in our last demos, we built out these different tabs. As a consumer, Charlie is not an admin. So as suspected, if you come into the TI processes, he gets blocked. If we go into rules, he's blocked. So you can rest assured that even though he has access in PAW to a certain folder or book, if he doesn't have actual TM1 security permissions to the data in the queue or perhaps the admin role of processes and rules, he would not be able to see these pages. So let's log out, and now let's go one level up. We're going to go into an analyst role. Annie is our analyst. So Annie, again, can't see that backup folder because we didn't give her permission. If we go into our CapEx folder, we notice we have a demo. But let's say as an analyst, remember how we blocked her from being able to edit the folder? So if we click these ellipses, we notice she does not have the ability to move the folder, rename the folder, delete the folder. She can just see the folder because she can view it. She didn't have edit access, or she didn't have full control as an admin does. But as an analyst, she can come into her personal and she can start building out things. So notice that she does have a button called New. Charlie did not have this. As a consumer, Charlie cannot build anything, but if we go to New and Book, away we go. We can start saving and creating things. But as an analyst role, you can only save personal dashboards, views, books, that sort of thing. So Annie can create content, but it's only for her capabilities, unless as an admin, we then share it for her. And let's say move it to the shared folder and then put permissions on it. So Annie couldn't do that. She would have to partner with her admin in PAW to say, hey, I built something really great. My manager loves it and wants to use it, right? So let's go back into our content. We're gonna go into our book, and here we can see Annie does have a pencil because she's an analyst. She can create things. She does have a pop-out data tree. And if we expand, she can see applications and cubes. These are the cubes that we granted her permission to. We could limit them or expand this list. Notice she can't have a process little icon here to see processes. She cannot see dimensions. She cannot see control cubes, anything like that. So this is the limited view that an analyst gets, applications and cubes only. And if we go over to dashboard, cannot access, we have the same error. So as an analyst, again, the important thing is they must have access to the underlying TM1 security object, right? So let's go to the input page again. So here we are on the input, and we noticed that last time Charlie was getting an error when he ran the process. So here we're gonna enter, some data. So Annie can enter in data. And now, remember, Annie was part of a special group that had permission to run a process. So if she now clicks on the button, run process, gets the prompt, and now it runs okay. And as we previously set up in our demo, we said, click the button, run the process, and jump us to the dashboard, right? So the process worked, it ran. Unfortunately, Annie doesn't have the TM1 security to see into these summary cubes. She only has access to the input cubes. So she would either have to work with her, manager, maybe they want her to have access, or maybe they want to block this access. So we also noticed that because she has access to a TI process, we had this page already built for her. She couldn't add this page because this is a control object and she doesn't have that control object on the left-hand side for processes. But this was already built for her. And you notice in the drop-down list, she can only see the one process that we gave her permission to, only one. So if we go over into the script, she can review the entire process. But because she's not an admin in TM1, if we were to go and try and enter in and edit this process and save it, we get an error, insufficient security privileges. So because she's not a TM1 admin behind the scenes, she can't edit a TI process, but because she can run the process and view the process, she can see it in this pre-built user interface, but then we could be sure that she can't do anything else. Same with rules, right? So she's not a TM1 admin behind the scenes, she's just a regular user. So if we had something built out with, these objects for rules, she couldn't see it. So again, everything rests back onto her TM1 rights. All right, now I'm gonna log back out. I'm gonna log back in. This time, let's be Molly. Molly is a modeler. Molly has the same exact setup as Annie. So same security in TM1. Let's go into our demo and see how this differs for a view as a modeler compared to an analyst in PAW. So Molly, the modeler, has the pencil to edit, but now we notice that she has, as a modeler, access to these objects on her data tree. Dimensions, processes, chores, and control objects do come up. But if we expand out, we notice that Molly had the same security in TM1 behind the scenes as Annie. She can only see one process. So that only process is listed here. So again, TM1 security is driving this PAW interface. If we go to the dashboard, same security, same results as Annie, the analyst. If we go to asset input, as you can imagine, we can run the process. She can see the TI as a modeler. And again, if we tried to enter in a comment or edit this process in any way and save it, obviously she's going to get the same error message as Annie. So being a modeler, even though you have access in the data tree to the objects that are saying dimensions, processes, chores, control objects, if you aren't truly granted that permission behind the scenes in TM1, you're still going to get blocked. There's rules, still blocked. So even though you have access on the left-hand side here to these, what I like to call individual objects, it doesn't mean you can do or see the data, because again, it's reaching back to TM1. I have one more person I want to show you, and that is Maria. She's a TM1 admin, but she's a TM1 security admin. So you notice that as an admin in PAW, she has the admin user interface that she can get to. She can see all folders. There's the backup folder. She has the ability to see all the users and to drill into what they've built out and see everything. Let's go back into our demo model here. We see that just like a modeler, she has a pencil. Just like the modeler, she has access to these objects on the left-hand side. But notice now as an admin, she can see all the processes that we've got for this cube, for this CapEx model. But let's take a look around. So what do we notice here? As a security admin and a PAW admin, the TM1 security still wins. So in PAW, they can see all the objects, they can't see the data. So it's blank. Again, asset input, blank. If I try and run a process, security admins can't run processes, blocked. So even true admins in PAW admins, there's a way to limit what they can and cannot do. If I go into rules, I can see rules, can't edit. Same with TI processes, right? So I can see things, can't edit. So, I'll just do a quick demo of that. Blocked again, because I'm a security admin in TM1. If I wanted to elevate this, I would have to make this person either a data admin or a TM1 admin. All right, so let's log in one more time as just the regular old TM1 admin and PAW admin. And I want to show you one more capability, which is to optimize a cube. So what do I mean optimize a cube? Well, each cube has a dimension order. So let's just take a look. CapEx summary has a list of dimensions. This was the order that it was created in. If you wanted to optimize, you have to go into the edit mode. So I'm going to click on the pencil. I'm going to right click on the cube, and I'm going to go into reorder dimensions. Now, for those of you who have done this in Architect, it looks the same, but in my opinion, there's a couple of limitations. So if I go and click on the new order, let's say I want to, move around a couple of these dimensions orders, you notice that unlike Architect, I don't have a percent change that was showing. So I could mess around with this and do a test, and it would show me the percent change. That unfortunately isn't here yet. I'm hoping it's a future enhancement. You'll also notice that there's no ability for the system to give you a suggested dimension order. That was really nice in Architect. Unfortunately, it's not here yet. So you can only, as a user, decide the order and then click apply. And then, I can click change. And then I get my percent change. So I think that this is still hopefully going to be developed and include some of those original features that were in Architect. But currently right now, you can only on the fly make the change, see the percent memory change, and then come back. And if you said, okay, I didn't like that, then of course you can come back and you can reorder it again, hit apply, and go through the process again. A little more tedious in my opinion, but hopefully, like I said, those enhancements are coming. Okay, so with that, I wanted to just point out again some conclusions that, everything is truly built upon TM1 security. So yes, we have these 4 roles in PAW, but the 4 roles really only dictate, as we see, what is on that user interface. So it only dictates, for example, do they have the pencil to edit? Do they have the ability to see applications and cubes as the little object in their data tree? Or do they have the ability to see dimensions, processes, chores, and control objects? Now, when you expand these, what they see under the expanded list is driven off of their TM1 security. So for example, when we logged in as Molly, she had the same security rights as Annie, but Molly, being a modeler, could see the list of processes. Unfortunately, she was limited to just see the only one process that she could run. But as an analyst, Annie could still run the process. She could only click the button, right? She couldn't come in here and expand the list of processes and right-click run. But again, PAW is a user interface. So really, you don't really want somebody to come in here, right-click run process like you did in the old architect days. You want to build a user interface, and you want to apply security, additional security to folders on top of that. So only certain people are accessing certain books and views that have buttons that then run the entire admin process, let's say. So I do have one more thing that I want to show you, and that is just based off of what I just said about being an admin and setting up things for your admins or people who run processes or things that only admins do. So in PAW, it's our best practice that we're setting up for our clients admin books. So I can go into my admin book, and it can be laid out something like this. So again, only a list of your admins would have ability to come in here, or perhaps certain people that need to run certain processes. And this is just a welcome page. You notice that I can click on any one of these and it can just jump me back and forth. So I'm using the same skill set that we talked about in our first demo of how to build a dashboard. But you notice that we have different tabs that showcase different capabilities. So we have a model overview. This is also best practice. Let's write a little write-up on our TM1 model. Let's show the data flow. Let's show where it's coming and who's accessing what, rules, TI, that sort of thing. Let's have cube security all set up. So you notice I have a nice logo, I have title, I have a little instruction for my admins, read or write under the appropriate cube and group permission. So this is already set up for the admins. They no longer have to come in, dig for this view. It's a real time saver. Same thing with TI processes, right? So I can come in here, I can maybe side by side, flip from prod to dev on the left and compare it to another TM1 instance and see why is one process working but another one isn't, sort of thing. And then of course, security on processes. So again, it's kind of nice to have these tabs already built out for all of my admins so that they can just come into here and on the fly edit some process security. This is also a best practice that we're doing for a lot of our clients, is building out a page that has an entire list of processes. So you notice it's the process name, a short description, who is the creator, and obviously you can add and edit as many different columns of information as you want, but it's kind of nice to have it all in one place as a running list. Finally, user management pages. These are also very common that we've built out, where you can just add buttons, right? So if I clicked on this, I can add a new user, maybe update a user. Here's a button to delete a user. It has a nice clean interface with some words. And rules, same. So you can come in here and you can, use these regions, expand and collapse different things in PAW so that it's nice and tidied up. And then you can do a comparison if you needed to. Notice that this is a control object. So, you can do control objects, rules, you can do regular cubes, rules. So a rules page is always a nice thing to have. So admin books are great to build out for your team of admin who have to do some of these, which can be kind of mundane. but also to add a little information and background. So if you hire a new admin, they can kind of hit the ground running. They know exactly where to go and what to do and just follow the steps on this page instead of remembering. Or let's say one of you, decides to take a vacation day and you have to rely on somebody else to run that monthly process for you, or, whatever the step might be. You can just simply say, hey, in order to do that, come to this page and follow the prompts and click the button. So it's no longer a mystery what your daily, monthly, quarterly, or annual tasks are. You can build them all out. So with that ends the demo. I'm going to jump back into the PowerPoint here. And this is just an example in, our real life that I showed you one admin book. So where I just went into one folder, one book, and they had the different tabs. But in reality, you would take each of those tabs and you'd probably make it its own book, and then only allow certain people to access those different books. So the certain people that only do user management, the certain people that are only doing process management. Maybe you have people that are just doing chores. So you can see here that, you can really itemize and then further control who has access to what book. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Steve, who's going to walk us through our PAW cheat sheet for admins.
Thank you, Maria. So just certain things to rehash and remember. Basically, TM1 security, native TM1 security will always take precedence over PAW security. So you must ensure that the TM1 security is correct before trying to address any PAW security issues. And then when developing new security groups or permissions in PAW, always test it on your dev environment first. Make sure it works as designed before promoting it to your production environment. And then the first person to log into a PAW environment is the admin. So this probably won't be an issue, as the admin is usually probably going to be the first person to log in. But this is just something to remember if you run into some kind of issue where someone's an admin that shouldn't be. And then IBM has been has kind of gotten to a quick cadence with their PAW updates. So always stay current on that. And then as long as your PAW is up to date, you'll get the newest, latest, and greatest features. And then creating admin books for repetitive tasks. So this just makes it easier, like Maria was discussing, if you're bringing someone new into the admin side of things, or if you are going on vacation. An admin book is great because it can lay out all the information. It's kind of like internal documentation, but it's available right on PAW directly. And you can even link it to the buttons or processes required as part of your admin processes. So just remembering these things, I think, will be big takeaways as you go on and get into the advanced PAW developing.
Okay, great. Thanks, Steve. All good tips. So that brings us to the end of today's webinar. I would encourage you all at this time to please enter in your questions into the GoToWebinar questions box. I have opened them up and I see quite a few. So I know we have 5 minutes left. I'm going to do my best to get through all of these. If I don't get to your question and we run out of time, I'll be sure to follow up with an email. My email, as well as Steve's, is located on the screen there. So feel free, you can reach us directly with any future questions that you might have about PAW. We are always willing to help. So here we go. I'm just going to start at the top of this list and go down. So first question, can you migrate changes from dev to prod using PAW? Is a server instance restart still required? Okay, so migrating from dev to PAW, you have to consider the architecture of PAW and TM1. So all data still gets written back to TM1's data folder, essentially. because that's where the data resides. So to do a dev to prod migration, you're going to still have to do this in the traditional sense. So that is going to be, you know, copying from one to another and then doing your server instance restart. Absolutely. The thing that I demoed today was how do you migrate PAW objects. So once you build a dashboard in PAW, you know, the little logo, the QueBIT logo and the header and, you know, the different layout of the page, that doesn't get written back to the data folder for TM1, that lives in PAW. So that's how we migrated those objects. But to do a traditional TM1 dev to prod migration, you're going to still do that in the same method that you do today. What are some new features that do not translate into Architect? Oh, this is a good question. So new features that don't translate into Architect would still be hierarchies and the rules regions. So I just showed you in rules how I rolled up the sections that you can create in PAW within rules. So the sections and that roll up capability doesn't show in Architect, but the rules themselves that you were to write like in PAW, they're still going to show up in Architect and vice versa. But Architect is still the same old rules capability, so it doesn't have the ability to roll up and have those regions. And then hierarchies is something that's new and exclusive to PAW, so that doesn't translate into Architect. But other than that, everything else should, you know, operate the same. What if one of my Architect users who I haven't set up yet in PAW logs into PAW? Can they log in? This is an excellent question as well. So anyone that has a TM1 username and password can log into PAW. So you don't have to actually go through the process of setting up all of your users in PAW. They can just come into the website and log in. But they will be defaulted to the PAW analyst role. So the analyst role is, again, as we saw, very limiting. You can't really do much. And then, of course, all of their security still is looking back to TM1. So you can see whatever you can see in TM1, but you would only have access then to PAW folders that were granted the everyone permission. So as an admin, I could go and I could share a folder with, quote, everyone, and people can access that folder in that book. But again, if I was, like as we saw with Annie the analyst, if she logged in and she didn't have access to that data, she can't see anything. She gets a bunch of errors on her screen. If she tried to run a button and a process was linked to it, she's going to get an error. So yes, you can log in if you're not set up as a user, so long as you have a TM1 login, but you're going to be defaulted to analyst and you're going to be very limited. Ideally, then the admin would go in and they would start granting permissions behind the scenes. What types of security authentication modes are there in PAW? Okay, on-premise PAW, you have the same options as TM1 authentication. You either have native or integrated. But if you're IBM Cloud, this uses its own special authentication. So IBM Cloud is all monitored and controlled by IBM. And essentially it's based off of your IBM ID, but that's all set up with IBM. They take care of everything. So it's kind of a special authentication mode that they've developed. Next question. Can you update the PAW config file if you're using IBM's Cloud PAW? Okay, so the PAW config file, this is a little tricky question. Let me try and be clear. So if you use IBM's PAW in the cloud, you're still running and managing your own TM1 instance. So therefore, you as an admin would still have access to all your TM1 config files. But for PAW in the cloud, IBM monitors your config and your install files. So therefore, if you wanted to update or anything PAW related, you'd have to contact IBM. So as we saw in my demo, I could access my TM1 model through my database tab in my admin user interface, and I could get in there and I could on the fly edit my config file. That's all TM1. So yes, you can do that. But if it's truly editing the PAW config files or anything behind the scenes in PAW, if you're a cloud user, that is now taken care of by IBM. I am new to developing in TM1. How do you add a new dimension and attribute? Okay, this is a good question as well. I actually did a review on how to add elements, dimensions, cubes, attributes, hierarchies, all that in the last session that we did together, the PAW for modelers. So I would recommend going and taking a look at that video. PAW for modelers, that's on our YouTube channel. There's also posted there the PAW dashboarding for end users, where I taught how to build a dashboard from scratch. So be sure to go and check that out. And with that, I see that I'm already at a little bit over in time. So unfortunately, I'm going to take all of these questions offline and I will get back to you all via email. But I wanted to wrap up and just say thank you so much for joining today's Planning Analytics Workspace for Admin training sessions. I hope that you all took away some key information from the dashboarding session, the modeler session, the admin session. If you do need any further help with PAW or you're interested in training, we do have official training for PAW as well as PAFE and Planning Analytics, amongst a lot of other different types of training. Be sure to check that out. It's QueBIT.com/training. And with that, thank you all so much for joining. I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.